All right, gather around, folks, because this is Uncle Three's ghost storytelling channel, and tonight marks our 39th night. I've got a truly fascinating tale for you, sent in by a man named Dara. He's Cambodian, 48 years old, and he's asked me not to mention the exact place he lives. This story goes way back to the year 2000, when Dara was just 24, living in a quiet, rural area surrounded by rice paddies. Now, in Dara's village, there was a relative he knew well, a woman named Malis. She was 4 years older than Dara. Malis had a husband, Sovann, who hailed from a coastal region and was 2 years her senior. When they got married, Malis laid down one condition. She would not move to Sovann's coastal hometown. Sovann had to agree to settle in her village and farm the land, or the wedding was off. He loved Malis so much that he agreed, so they got married and started their life together in her village. Malis's parents were generous. They gave the newlyweds a piece of land to build their own house and several rice fields for them to work. Dara described Sovann as an absolutely fantastic mankind, gentle, incredibly hardworking, and he absolutely doted on his wife. Besides working their own fields, they'd take on all sorts of odd jobs, working day and night. The man rarely had a day off. He was naturally strong, a former seaman before he got married, and folks from the sea are known for their health and stamina. Everyone in the village used to say Malis was fortunate and blessed beyond measure, as if she'd done good deeds in many past lives to find a husband like Sovann. But you know how it is. Sometimes fate plays a cruel trick. Before marriage, Malis wasn't much for dressing up or looking pretty. But once she married Sovann, she suddenly developed a taste for fancy clothes and looking good. Before, she'd helped her parents in the fields, but after the wedding, Sovann did everything. He wouldn't let her lift a finger. This newfound idleness, unfortunately, led to some bad habits. Sovann gave her all the money he earned, so she had plenty to spend on herself. He adored her and was proud of her beauty, so he never stopped her or got angry. They were married for 3 years, but still had no children. And despite all of Sovann's hard work, they barely saved a dime because Malis spent so much. Then, Malis fell ill. It was a severe sickness, costing a fortune to treat. They had to borrow a lot of money, and even after she recovered, they were saddled with a hefty debt. Sovann and Malis discussed their options. They realized they'd never pay off such a large debt just by farming and taking odd jobs. So Sovann made a tough decision. He told Malis he'd go back to his hometown, return to sea, and work on a fishing boat. He'd come home every 3 or 4 months for about 20 days. Working at sea paid much better, and he figured that in a few years, they could clear their debt. Whatever money was left, they'd use to buy more rice fields, rent them out, and then he'd finally quit the sea for good. With more land, they could go back to farming together or start a business. And so Sovann went to sea. He made about 3 or 4 trips. And just like he planned, the debt was completely paid off. During this time, Malis mostly stayed home, not doing much, just spending the money Sovann left her. Dara remembered feeling so sorry for Sovann during that period. Every time Sovann came home, he'd bring back fresh seafood, shrimp, fish, to share with their relatives. If he found something really exotic, he'd gather Dara and other friends, and they'd have a big drinking session. Dara deeply respected and liked Sovann. But as Dara recalled, an old saying holds true. Idleness breeds evil. When people have too much free time, they can develop bad habits. Malis, living a life of luxury with a husband earning money for her to spend, found herself with too much free time. First, she took up gambling, playing cards with other women in the village, which was just a pastime. But then, she escalated. She started cheating on her husband. At first, it was just rumors, whispers that Malis was seeing someone else. Some people believed it, others didn't. But eventually, it seemed everyone in the village knew. Dara first heard she was with a man named Nawin from an upper part of the village. Nawin had actually liked Malis and pursued her before she married Sovann, but she hadn't been interested. He'd gone on to marry someone else, but later divorced. When Dara first heard the rumors, he didn't believe them, nor did his drinking buddies, thinking people were just being jealous and gossiping. But then, Dara's mother told him something that made him suspicious. She said she hadn't believed the rumors either, but one night, coming home from her sister's house, she'd accidentally seen a man pull up to Malis's house. He looked a lot like Nawin. Malis's door was closed, and no lights were on inside. The man went in, and Malis quickly closed the door behind him. Dara's mother wasn't sure if it was Nawin, but she was certain Malis had brought a man home. Dara and a few friends decided to investigate. They split into 2 teams. Every night, one team would stake out Nawin's house to see where he went, while the other watched Malis's house to see if anyone visited her after dark. The first night, they saw nothing. But on the second night, after all the neighbors had turned off their lights and gone to sleep, Nawin cautiously left his house and headed straight for Malis's. It was precisely as Dara's mother had described. He knocked, Malis opened the door, and he slipped inside before she closed it again. Dara said they waited there until the roosters crowed, only leaving after Nawin came out and went home. When Sovann returned from sea, everything seemed normal to him. He still invited his friends, including Dara, for drinks. No one dared tell him what they knew. Dara and his friends were torn, unsure if they should speak up. They had no solid proof, and they were afraid Sovann wouldn't believe them, which could just make things worse. But Dara said his conscience tortured him. He considered Sovann a genuinely good man, a close, long-time friend. Knowing his wife was cheating and keeping it hidden made him feel incredibly guilty. He tried to tell Sovann many times, but he always backed out at the last moment and kept quiet. About a year later, that's when things really took a dark turn. Sovann would sometimes come home during the day, sometimes at night. This particular time, he arrived home late one night. The next morning, he went to Malis's parents' house, asking if they knew where his wife was. "I came home last night and she wasn't there," he said. "I thought she might have come here to sleep, but it was late, so I didn't come looking." Malis's parents said no. She always slept at home and never stayed with them. Sovann asked around the village, but no one knew where she was either. He shrugged it off, saying, "Oh well, maybe she went to a friend's wedding far away. She might not be back for a few days." That afternoon, Sovann met Dara and invited him to a get-together. "Hey Dara," he said, "let's go to the fields tonight and grill some sea fish for a drink. I've got some good stuff." Dara agreed, and Sovann invited the others too. Dara remembered Sovann bringing a black bag containing thin, sliced pieces of reddish meat. Dara asked, "Hey, you said sea fish, but this looks just like beef." Sovann replied, half joking, half serious. "It's human flesh." Then he laughed and said, "Have you guys ever eaten mermaid flesh?" Everyone was curious about this exotic dish. Sovann laughed again. "I haven't either. People call this a sea cow. It's rare to catch one. Try it. Sea cow, some also call it mermaid. The meat is tough, so you have to slice it thin and grill it to make it delicious." Dara and his friends were all farmers. They'd eaten regular sea fish before, but they weren't familiar with all the different types of fish or sea creatures. They figured Sovann, being a seaman, had brought back some exotic delicacy, so they'd just eat it as he instructed. Sovann told them to lightly grill the meat over the fire and eat it hot. He claimed it was sweet, fragrant, and chewy. That's how it tasted best. They drank and grilled and ate. In the past, anything Sovann brought back to eat was delicious. But Dara honestly couldn't stand this sea cow meat. He said it tasted strange, incredibly fishy, and oddly chewy. Sovann even picked a piece for him, and he tried his best to eat it, but he could only manage half a slice. He pretended to chew the rest, then excused himself to pee, where he secretly spat it out. He simply couldn't swallow it. His other friends had similar reactions. Some managed one piece, but others, like Dara, ate half and spit out the rest. Sovann urged them to eat more, but everyone politely refused, saying it was too fishy and they weren't used to it. Sovann just sighed. "This is a rare delicacy. It's too bad you guys can't eat it," and then happily devoured the rest himself. At the time, they just thought it was an unusual meat, and some people were used to it, while others weren't. The next day, Malis still hadn't returned. And strangely enough, Sovann, the man she was having the affair with, was also missing. People immediately suspected the two had run away together. Sovann searched high and low, asking everyone in the village, but no one knew where his wife had gone. He looked absolutely heartbroken. Finally, a village woman couldn't bear it anymore. She told Sovann everything about Malis' affair with Sovann from beginning to end. She continued, "And now, Malis hasn't been seen for 2 days, and neither has Sovann. They've probably run off together. Believe me or don't, I'm an old woman. I wouldn't lie to you." Sovann didn't say a word. He just walked away and found Dara. He recounted what the neighbor had told him. "Now, if you truly care about me," he pleaded, "please tell me the truth. Don't hide anything. I'm suffering enough. Has Malis been cheating on me for a long time?" At that moment, Dara finally told him everything he knew and witnessed. Dara said it was heartbreaking. Sovann didn't curse or yell or show any anger. Dara just saw tears welling up in his eyes. Sovann sat there silently, his face filled with profound sadness, looking completely empty, soulless. Dara believed Sovann was utterly devastated and disappointed. His friends gathered around to comfort him. The next day, Sovann locked his house, packed his backpack, and went to Malis' parents. He told them everything that had happened. He said, "Whether Malis was cheating or not, I haven't confirmed it, and I'm not suspecting her of anything. But I don't know where she is. I'm going back to my hometown for a few days. Then I'll come back here. When Malis shows up, we'll talk things through." Malis' parents knew their daughter was cheating, but they'd tried to scold her, and she wouldn't listen, so they stayed silent. What else could they say? They couldn't accuse their own daughter. Sovann handed them the house keys and walked off alone towards his hometown, looking utterly dejected. It was a truly pitiful sight. Nothing happened for 2 days. Then, early on the third morning, the neighbor who lived directly opposite Malis's house rushed over to Malis's parents' place. She told them that the night before, she'd seen a man and a woman lurking near Malis's fence. She explained that her eyesight wasn't excellent at night, so she couldn't clearly make out who they were. But she was certain there were 2 people at the fence. She didn't know what they were doing, but she urged Malis's parents to check, just in case burglars knew the couple wasn't home and were trying to break in. Malis's mother went to check, accompanied by the neighbor. When they arrived, the house door was still locked, with no signs of forced entry. But as they stood there, they both smelled a foul, musty odor wafting from inside, like a dead rat. Malis's mother thought, "Oh, a dead rat inside," and opened the door to find and dispose of it before the whole house reeked. The neighbor later recalled that as the door opened, the stench hit her so hard she almost threw up on the spot. She also heard faint giggling, like a man and woman whispering and laughing. She asked Malis's mother if she had heard it, but Malis's mother said no. The 2 women continued, trying to locate the source of the awful smell. Malis's mother sniffed her way slowly to the bedroom door. She said, "It must be coming from the bedroom." The moment she opened the bedroom door, she let out a shriek and fell backward onto the ground. The neighbor, who was standing about 10 to 12 feet away, was startled. She turned and saw Malis's mother scrambling backward, gasping for breath, crying, "Sister, help, help!" The neighbor rushed to help Malis's mother up and asked what was wrong, but Malis's mother couldn't speak. She could only point a trembling finger towards the bedroom door. So the neighbor cautiously approached the bedroom door and looked inside. Oh my God! She immediately fell back too, nearly fainting on the spot. Inside the bedroom were 2 naked bodies, terribly bloated and decaying, giving off an unspeakable stench. The neighbor somehow managed to crawl back to the yard and screamed for everyone nearby to come. By the time more people arrived, Malis's mother had fainted and had to be rushed to the emergency room. The police arrived and began their investigation. They found 2 highly decomposed bodies, both with multiple stab wounds. The wounds were made by a butcher's cleaver, the kind used for chopping pig bones and meat. Next to the bodies was a pile of blood-stained clothes. Both victims' arms had been chopped off and were missing. There were also signs that flesh had been cut from both of their thighs. Most disturbing of all, neither corpse had its genitals, and the woman's breasts had both been cut off. Even more gruesome, when they searched the kitchen, they found human arm segments stewing in a pot on the stove. By this point, you can guess who the 2 bodies belonged to. It was Malis and Sovann. The most suspicious person, of course, was Sovann. The police immediately went to his house, but when they arrived, they were told he had gone to sea again. However, their investigation revealed that the boat Sovann usually sailed on was still docked at the harbor and hadn't gone out fishing. An arrest warrant was issued and a search began. But to this day, over 20 years later, no one has ever heard anything about Sovann. There were rumors, of course. Some said Sovann boarded another boat, went to Thailand, and then committed suicide by jumping into the sea. Others said he escaped to Malaysia on a fishing boat and never came back. No one knows the truth about what happened to him. People speculate, though. They guessed that because Sovann only came home occasionally, he probably wanted to surprise Malis when he arrived that night. But instead, he was the one who got a horrifying surprise. He likely found his wife cheating right there in their own home. Consumed by rage, he must have stabbed them both to death, and in his fury, he chopped off their arms and stewed them in the kitchen. As for their genitals, no one knows what he did with them. That remains a complete mystery. But what truly terrified Dara, and what he recounted, were those missing thigh sections. Dara believes that those thinly sliced pieces of meat that Sovann had served them that night, calling them sea cow, were very likely the thigh meat from Malis and Sovann, cut off by Sovann. The thought of it sends shivers down his spine. If it's true, then he and his friends had eaten human flesh. Even though they only ate a little, the realization makes them feel sick, goosebumps crawling all over them, and a wave of nausea. Every time they talk about it, they feel like throwing up. To this day, whenever Dara sees meat that looks like those slices, he immediately feels nauseous. He remembered how little his friends ate that night. Sovann was the only one who ate most of it. Remembering him happily chewing the meat sends chills down Dara's spine, like watching a monster or demon in a movie eating human flesh. Now, back to the haunting. That neighbor who saw the two shadowy figures lingering by Malis's fence and later heard giggling inside the house. Everyone believed she encountered ghosts. The house became famous as a haunted house in Cambodia for a while. The neighbor kept saying that at night, she'd often see two figures moving back and forth in front of the fence, just like that first night she saw them. Before, she thought they were real people, so she wasn't scared. But in the following nights, she became terrified. She even claimed that sometimes in the middle of the night, she'd hear crying coming from the house, forcing her to pull the blankets over her head and cover her ears just to try and sleep. Dara and his friends initially didn't believe her. They thought she might be making it up to scare people, especially since houses were far apart back then. Only Malis's house and the neighbor's house were close by, with the next house being hundreds of feet away. So only that one neighbor was claiming to see these spooky things. But Dara's group, being quite brave, decided to go ghost hunting themselves to see what these spirits looked like. One night, Dara and two friends were staking out the house. They waited a long time until around 9 p.m., he estimated, because no one had watches back then to know the exact time. They were just about to leave when one friend whispered, Hey, did you guys see that? I definitely saw something." They all looked, and there it was, a faint shadow moving back and forth on the house's porch. Dara said he'd never believed in ghosts before and had never seen one. But that night, he got goosebumps all over. All three of them saw it, but only one shadow. And it looked distinctly like a man. They didn't have time to wonder why there was only one ghost when there should have been two. Dara quickly said, "All right, guys, let's go. I'm suddenly getting a weird chill. That's enough for me. I believe what the neighbor said. She wasn't lying." His two friends must have felt the same, because as soon as he spoke, all three stood up to leave. But just as they turned to go, a shadow appeared right in front of them. It was the shadow of Malis. All three screamed, but in the blink of an eye, the shadow was gone. Everyone just ran, heads down, as fast as they could back to their homes. If only one person had seen it, they might have thought it was a trick of the light, but all three of them saw it clearly. There was no way they could have been mistaken. It was undeniably Malis's shadow, standing right there in front of them. After that experience, Dara said he was done. No more ghost hunting for him. A few months later, the neighbor couldn't take it anymore and moved away. She said, even though the two ghosts hadn't harmed her, imagine having to step out of your house every night and see two ghosts walking back and forth, and then hear crying in the middle of the night. Who could stand that? Years later, Malis's parents finally tore down the house. The land is still there, but no one has dared to build a new home on it. It's abandoned land now. Once, Malis's mother lent the land to a couple to build a home, but they only lasted 3 days before they ran away, completely terrified. Through this story, Dara hopes that we all remember to stay faithful in love and marriage. No matter what problems arise, we should sit down, talk things through, and find solutions together. Don't let things escalate to such tragic consequences, because by then, it's too late to regret, and the aftermath can be devastating. That's the message he wanted to share. And with that, our story for tonight comes to an end. A big thank you to Dara for sending in this tale, and I wish him and his family good health and peace in life. I'll see you all next time for our 40th night.